Test. Okay. I had to be the doorman and the AV person, so sorry. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's service. Please remember, we don't allow food or drinks in the hondo. Also, please turn off your cell phones or put them on silent. Do we have any first-time visitors here this morning? Hello. It's up to you if you can introduce yourself or not. Stand up. Oh, welcome. Good to see you here. Anybody else? Okay, we will begin this service with Sambujo, which is on page 24 in the large service book, followed by sutra chanting Juseige, which is on page 23 in the small Dharma school service book, or page 93 in the large service book. Namanams, 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 namanams.
Oh
Please rise now for the scene of the Gatha, Namo, Amida, Butsu, which is on page 67 in the Small Dharma School Service Book. Please remain standing for the Three Treasures, which is on page 3 in the same book.
Trustingly we cry. treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of thy doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's service. We're kind of starting to wind down our summer schedule over the next couple of weeks. Next weekend will be the 125th anniversary service in San Francisco, and the ministers will be attending that service or participating in that service. And then a week after that, on the 8th, is our Dharma school starting up again. And everything is going to be opening up. It's always been open, but our Dharma school is starting now. YBA has been having their meetings, and the activities will be returning to the Betsuin. How quickly the summer has passed. Pretty soon we'll be able to put on our heavy coats again. And during the Obon, there's the merchandise table where we're selling t-shirts and those kinds of things. Nobody wants to buy sweatshirt in the middle of Obon because it's so hot that you can't imagine being cold enough again to have to wear a hoodie. So it doesn't sell very well. We have sweatshirts from previous Obon that we still have. And some people, I think, are waiting for next year to buy this year's hoodie. I think it's good planning, but in the middle of summer, it's hard to imagine that you need this hoodie again. But in a few months, it'll be cold enough that we'll be able to kind of bring our warm clothes out and put those on. Things change. Buddhism reminds us that everything in a process of change. In a few weeks also, a couple of weeks, it's going to be Ohigan. And we'll have a guest speaker for our Ohigan service, Reverend Bridge from the Berkeley Buddhist Temple, to be joining us for that service. Excuse me, what did I say? Berkeley. He's Oakland, not Berkeley. So Bridge says he's from the Oakland Buddhist Temple. I was reminded, that Sensei plays bass. He's not well known, but he's a very good bass player. So he's helped with the production of several songs that have gone onto the internet. They put on the internet, and you can see it on YouTube. So a very talented minister from Oakland will be our guest speaker in a couple of weeks for Ohigan. Ohigan we've always had, right? I mean, in our practice here at the temple is something that we've always, twice a year we observe once the spring Ohigan and then the autumn Ohigan. And the reason there are two of these are services that are observed at the equinox when the days and the nights are the same length. And so it's a real kind of a temperate time. It's not in the heat of summer or the cold of winter, but just when the days and nights are balanced, that the weather is pleasant, that we observe these services, these Ohigan service. And Ohigan was started by Emperor Shomu, who lived in the 8th century Japan. Shomu was probably the most Buddhist emperor. And if you know Japanese history, the emperors are actually Shinto. Right? I mean, the country of Japan has this indigenous religion, Shinto, that goes way back in its history. And as it became a nation, it became more defined that there was this emperor that would serve as the head of the nation. And this head was a descendant of this Shinto tradition. And so the emperor of Japan is Shinto, but Shomu was a very Buddhist emperor. It wasn't very long after the introduction of Buddhism into Japanese culture that this took place. I mean, considering a very relatively short period of time, Buddhism is introduced into Japan in the 7th century. So it's about 100 years later that as Shomu becomes the emperor of Japan, well known for his support of Buddhism. One of the things that Shomu did was building Todaiji and having the Buddha image there cast. It is one of, well, at that time, it was the largest wooden structure in the world, and it remained that for quite a long time. And the cast bronze statue of Vairocana was a huge, huge statue. The making of Todaiji nearly bankrupt Japan. There was so much resources that were drawn to have this Todaiji built that it nearly bankrupt the country. Shomu, among other things, he also established these provincial kind of headquarters of Buddhism. So in the different provinces, that those provinces had a Buddhist temple and a nunnery that was built by Shomu under direction of Shomu. But it's also Shomu that begins this Ohigan practice. Shomu, at these 2 times in the year, felt that everybody should be thinking about their practice, and that everybody should have the time to deepen their understanding of the teachings of the Buddha. I mean, if you were a farmer at that time of history, I mean, every day from morning to night, you were engaged in that occupation. You had to get everything done. There was no alternative to that. You were bound to that simply because of the work that was required. Or if you were a shopkeeper, it was the same thing. It wasn't like you take days off during the year. Every day it was necessary for you to apply your energies and resources to make the things happen that were required in order to sustain yourself. And so Shomu designated these 2 times in the year when people were allowed to spend some time to think about the teachings of the Buddha, to deepen their appreciation of the teachings of the Buddha. So that's where Ohigan starts. Ohigan is the other shore. So in this period of time, the other shore, one practiced, one had to do something to get to that other shore. That other shore represented the opposite of this shore. So this shore was a shore of unenlightenment. The other shore was the world of enlightenment. So to get to that other shore, you needed to practice. You needed to perfect these practices in order to get to the other shore and to go from samsara to nirvana. And so, twice a year, time was set aside for people to think about and to reflect upon how we might be able to get to that other shore of enlightenment. In the following 12 centuries, that brings us to here now, there's a lot of things that happen in those 12 centuries. So this is the 8th century. It's in the 12th century that Shinran arrives. So 300 years pass from the time of Shomu's introduction of the Ohigan to the time of the arrival of Shinran. 300 years. And between the time of the arrival of Shinran to our present time, some 850 years have passed. And in that time as well, there have been many changes that have taken place. One of the things I think that it's important for us to understand is that at the time of Shomu, there was no Pure Land Buddhism. I mean, there was no Jodo Shinshu, right? There was no Jodo Shinshu because Shomu predates Shinran's understanding. So the origins out of which Shomu's introduction of Ohigan has nothing to do with Shinran because it predates Shinran. Shinran's not around. So when Shinran arrives and his understanding of the teachings of the Buddha is fundamentally the same as Shomu, but the means to reach the other shore is very different. Shinran understands that the practice that would require us to go to the other shore was for him not possible. Not possible. So, he calls himself things like Gotoku Shinran, the short-haired fool, the person who is incapable of the practices necessary to get to the other shore. And we have, in our understanding, we still observe Ohigan. And when we have Ohigan in 2 weeks, don't tell Bridge Sensei, no, that's not right. I'm sure he'll have his understanding of Ohigan will be based in Jodo Shinshu. But what Shomu was proposing, that we set aside time to reflect on and to spend time practicing the means to get to the other shore, Shinran recognized that he was incapable of doing that. So between the time of Shomu, the 8th century Japan, to 400 years later, to the time of Shinran, when Shinran arrives, and this kind of coincides with the stages of, 3 stages of the Buddha Dharma, where there is a time when the Buddha is present, the time when it is still possible to attain enlightenment, and the last period, Mappo, in which there is no ability to attain enlightenment. And Shinran felt he was in this period of time. So this is kind of overarching time perception or time understanding within Buddhism, a time in which Shakyamuni Buddha existed, in which it was possible to study and to hear and to receive directly the teachings from Shakyamuni Buddha. And then a period of time, and there's a decline in our ability to do that. There's nobody present who is an enlightened being that is able to transfer that information. And then Mappo, the last period of time, where there's nobody around to share the Dharma who has the ability or the intellect or the skills to transfer that information, from whom we might be able to listen and learn how to go from unenlightenment to enlightenment. And that's the period of time Shinran perceived himself to be in. But he didn't feel as if he was cut off. He felt in his, I shouldn't say in his final, but in his understanding, that it was possible for him as well to attain enlightenment. While he was up on Hiizan, he felt that for him, the practices that were being prescribed in order to resolve these difficulties, to go from samsara to nirvana, from this shore to the other shore, that those practices were not possible for him to fulfill. I mean, it was, and that's why I say that's why he left Hiizan. Because what he was doing at Hiizan, and it wasn't a criticism of the people who were there. It was an observation of his own abilities and skills, that it was impossible for him to fulfill these practices. And so he came down off of the mountain and began to seek another teacher, and he was led to Honen. And what Honen was talking about was an approach to this enlightenment, not through our effort, but rather through Amida Buddha. That Amida Buddha provides the means through which we can resolve these difficulties. So, in the time of Shinran, it's still this question of how to go from this shore to the other shore, from going from this world to the world of enlightenment. That's still at the core of the teachings of the Buddha. So that has not changed. But the means through which we attain that in Shinran has changed. Where in the time of Shomu it was still possible, at least in Shomu's understanding, that we give ourselves the time to examine our practices, that to give us a time to study, to take in the importance of the teachings of the Buddha. By the time Shinran arrives, in his understanding, it's still possible to do that, but for himself, there was no practice that he felt he was able to fulfill. And so his understanding, eventually through his teacher, Honen, his understanding, where he arrived at, was that although I am absolutely incapable of any practice that would lead to the birth in the Pure Land, my birth in the Pure Land, or my attainment of enlightenment, or my getting to the other shore, although I am incapable of any of that practice, Amida Buddha assures me that I too am able to experience the resolution of difficulties. And so, the Nembutsu Namamida Butsu, we oftentimes say, Nembutsu Namamida Butsu is expression of gratitude. It's an expression of gratitude for the assurance of Amida Buddha that provides for the enlightenment of all beings. It's a different way, in a radically different way, of seeing the practices that had been required to attain enlightenment. In the time of Shomu, this was still the means, this was still the way to attain enlightenment, through practices. By the time Shinran arrives, and Shinran's understanding of himself and his abilities and skills, the means to attain enlightenment is not within the individual, but rather it is by compassion, or through compassion, that we are able to attain enlightenment. how we perceive ourselves within Jodo Shinshu, is that I am an individual incapable, and that's not a bad thing, it's just an acknowledgement of, I'm red-green colorblind, so I cannot distinguish between red and green. No matter how much I say, I would like to be able to distinguish between red and green, and I get this, I know, okay, so it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen where I can tell between red and green, no matter what, no matter what kind of things I put in front of my eyes or what kind of things that I might wish to do or hope to do. It's not gonna change. I'm going to be and have been red-green colorblind. It's not gonna change. It's not a bad thing. It's simply a recognition of where I am. And so one of the things that I really enjoy, have been enjoying, is photography. And photography has a long time been a part of things that I like to do. But in photography, it's important as you develop your images. Develop meaning not actually going through chemicals development, but then as you refine the image that you have, adding contrast, adding a black point, adding, the vibrancy, the lightness. As you adjust your image, you would think that it would be necessary to know what colors are in that image. So I often think I should go to black and white, start doing black and white photography. But black and white photography also requires perception of color. Because when you look at color, the contrast from color to color will differ. And that contrast influences the way you develop a black and white photo. So I thought, well, if I just shoot a scene and printed it in black and white, it would be okay. And it's flat because it doesn't really take into account the contrast, the tone values within the image. So although I would like to, and I still do photography, I enjoy doing photography, and I still do prints that I can enjoy. But I also understand there are limitations to how the post-production of a print is very, it's not limiting, it's simply different. It's a result of my color blindness. But the prints, people appreciate or enjoy. So my inability to distinguish between red and green is not limiting. It's simply a condition. And so my inability to cultivate the mind that simply sees things as they are, the mind of enlightenment, I'm incapable of doing. But because of the assurance of Amida Buddha, I can see myself differently. I can look at myself as a finite individual, not in a way that says, you're not capable or you're not good. Because I am red-green colorblind, that does not say that I'm a bad person. I simply have this inability to perceive. My inability to cultivate the mind of enlightenment doesn't make me a bad person or a person that lacks anything. It simply acknowledges, recognizes what I am incapable of doing. This is kind of maybe as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about Waltz's son, with his neurodivergence and his learning, verbal learning capabilities. And that what they said was that this is his super strength, that is his special ability. What we would perceive as a disability the family, the Walls family, sees as a super ability, something that is, that who he is, this is his special ability. Our inability to cultivate the mind that simply sees things as they are, the practices that would lead us to the world of enlightenment. My inability to do that simply acknowledges my condition. But in the light of Amida Buddha, I am affirmed as I am. It's not a bad person, it's not a good person, but the assurance of Amida Buddha allows me to look more openly at myself. That I'm not trying to be something other than I am. When we were working on our 100th anniversary here at the Betsuin, and we were going through the renovation of the Hondo, there were a lot of decisions that needed to be made, things like replacing the pews. Ohata Sensei was having the onaijin restored, and new articles placed into the onaijin. And, carpets, new carpets were being placed in. And so I was, involved in some of the decisions that were necessary as we were planning for the restoration of the Hondo. And I offered my opinion on the color of the carpet. They turned to me and said, "What? You?" And by that time, everybody knows I'm colorblind. So I said, "Oh, I'll help. I'll make a decision." But so it's not a bad thing, right? It's just simply an inability that I have. I can't distinguish. And I would offer my opinion as people say, "Okay, thank you very much. Very nice." And in the same way, right, as we recognize our ability or inability to attain that enlightenment in the compassion of Amida Buddha that moves us toward that very enlightenment, our perception of ourselves and our relation to the world is very different. It changes. It's not that I am doing this thing to get to where I need to get to. I am supported and sustained by the world around me, the life around me. That if I think about it, I am sustained by that world, by the life around me. And so that sense of gratitude is not just a matter of instruction, but it is an acknowledgement of the life that sustains me. When we say Namo Amida Butsu, it is an expression of gratitude. Namo Amida Butsu, that I too am able to eventually resolve the difficulties that I experience. As we observe Ohigan, it's interesting that we observe Ohigan somewhat in the way that it was originally brought into existence by Emperor Shomu more than 12 centuries ago. It may be important for us to think about how we observe these practices that have been part of our tradition for such a long time, and to think about our understanding of these practices in the light of Shinnan's appreciation of the Nembutsu. Today, in a couple of weeks, we'll have an opportunity to think about Ohigan, to hear how we might be able to go from this shore, the shore of enlightenment, to the world, the shore of unenlightenment, to the world of enlightenment. That is still at the core of the teachings of the Buddha. It is still at the core of our practice of the Dharma. understanding of what moves me from this world to the other world, from samsara to nirvana. And in kind of bringing this all together, there is, again, a verse in Shoshinge in which Shinran says, a person of Shinjin realizes that samsara, birth and death, is nirvana. These are not two different things. Samsara is nirvana. How do we understand that? How do we incorporate that understanding into our lives? How do we make that understanding of Shinran resonate with our own lives and our perceptions of the world around us? It's another form of practice. It's another way of trying to understand the world in which we live and the deep relationship we share with the world around us. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Rinban. Please rise now for the singing of Gatha Ondokusan II on page 76 in the small Dharma School service book.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Please be seated.
Are there any announcements?
Good morning, everyone. I just came back from the event. I have an announcement about a special service called the Techno-Hoyo on the September 17th and 18th. So we'll have the new kind of service called the Techno-Hoyo with Reverend Asakura, a Jodo Shinshu priest from Japan, who used to be a DJ. Yeah, and his partner, who was inspired by Reverend Asakura, will also join this service. And Reverend Asakura has arranged a traditional Jodo Shinshu chanting in a techno style. And using technology, he will create a light show in the main hall, this kind of place, to represent the enlightenment of the Buddha, the world of Buddha. And this service will have a completely different kind of atmosphere from what we have experienced before. So I hope you will kind of enjoy this, and then we'll take this opportunity to enjoy and kind of experience of Buddhism and a sutra chanting in a simply kind of engaging way. Yeah. And a service on the 17th will be at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. And on the 18th at the 7 p.m. So this service will be a free service, so everyone is welcome to attend. So I have a flyer, so if you are interested in this service, you can take the flyer, so I'll hand it to you here. Thank Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jeannie Nakano with Sangha Support. Today's a day we are videotaping Sumi Tanabe. Sumi was our first woman president. She founded our committee called the Sangha Support Committee, and she founded the Homeless Meals Program. So for us, she's been really a wonderful asset. All of you know wherever she is, she's such a terrific lady. So we need to document all that she had thought about when she formed the Homeless Meals Program. It's been going on for 20 years? I don't know. You know, when you get to a certain age, the years just tick by, and pretty soon you're talking about decades. So it could be a couple of decades that we've been doing the homeless meal. And you know, it's very gratifying. They are clients currently over at the Julian Street Inn, and we get comments like, could you come more often? They really enjoy our hot meals. These are the unhoused, probably undernourished people, and we have a great reputation over at the Julian Street Inn for bringing our hot lunches, and we'd like to continue it. And so we're going to make an effort to document Sumi before, before not too much longer. And so that's going to be today. After the service, 11:15, boardroom. We were going to use the conference room. It's a little too small. So we're going to move Sumi up to the boardroom. So please join us. Keep Sumi comfortable and support her. And we have refreshments up there too. You can enjoy refreshments after service down in the garden, then come up at 11:15 and have yet more refreshments with us. So please join us. And then I'd like to also announce in September, we're having our second Games Day. This will be in the multipurpose room and the gym. It will be from 11 to 1, again with great refreshments. We will have chair exercises with Mikame sensei. We will have all kinds of card games, much of which I don't know how to play, but others do. So we have folks coming in to help our committee. We will have arts and crafts. We will have regular puzzles. How many of you do puzzles? I got started during the COVID period. So my husband and I worked on a lot of puzzles. So we sort of continue that in our spare time. So that's September the 22nd. It's a Sunday after service. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. As you can tell, we're big on refreshments here. So, let's see. As you heard, Rinban mentioned next week the BCA is celebrating their 125th anniversary. So there's two things. Number one, there are no services here that day. Oh, we're going to have services now? I was told there were no services.
I'll explain.
Okay. Well, Dennis will explain. So another screw up by me. Okay. Misinformed as always. But anyway, if you wish to observe the 125th celebration, that'll be available online. So you can, through the BCA website. I don't know if we have a connection on our website, but certainly you can go to the BCA website for that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so there is a change. So BCA is observing the 120th anniversary of its founding. There'll be a special service in San Francisco starting at 10 right next week. The ministers are going to be there. We will open up the temple and we will show the service here and we can participate. We can chant along with them. So you're all welcome to come and do that. We'll try to have 2 screens, one over there and one over here. And I think it might be a little bit longer than an hour. But it'll be pretty interesting, I think. Some different things you'll see. So you're all welcome to come. And I'll be here, and some others will be here, and we'll have refreshments afterwards. And we could talk about everything we see in the service. So, and then as Rinban mentioned, the following week, the first week of Dharma school, so there'll be 2 services. Dharma school service at 9:30, and the adult service will be at 10:10. And then I believe the Okigan service is the following Sunday, which is the 15th, with Reverend Bridge from Oakland. Also, on the 8th, the first day of Dharma school, after Dharma school, you can, or after service, you can go up to San Francisco. There's American Bone Dancing at Yerba Buena Garden. It's a festival there. Also on that day, Sunday, you're invited to come in happy coats and yukata to Yerba Buena Gardens to dance in joy and remembrance. And this is also in celebration of the 125th anniversary of the BCA. There'll be a tribute to past mass Obonodori. Everyone is invited to dance with San Jose Taiko. We have PJ Hirabayashi. We have Bombu Stories. They're the creators of that lantern song, which we danced for the first time at Obon. There's Ensoza, which is kind of like a minyo group in the Bay Area, and Nobuko Minamoto, who has created a lot of unique Obon Odori that is performed in Southern California. So this is at between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Again, Yerba Buena Gardens, September 8th. There's a flyer in the Dharma for more information, or you could probably talk to Reiko, who's here, for more information about that. So that's it. So we'll be closing with the Gassho.
Chant Gassho, please. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everyone.
Please come up for Oshoko and refreshments in the garden. Thank you very much for attending.